So we got a chance to take our first trip of the year in early February to Aiken State Park.
And we'll just start off by saying we were off our game. We had not gone since the end of November, before Thanksgiving-ish. And just because of holiday travel, and we had a family wedding and some other things, that it was like, we just aren't going to go. And that's the longest we've been. Since we had our camper, that's the longest time. And we didn't have it together.
we were off our game. It was a little bit of a difficult trip, but we still tried to make the best of it. We'll show you around Aiken and Aiken State Park throughout this video. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so it's been a while. We have not been camping since before Thanksgiving.
2.5 months.
The longest we've gone since we've owned the camper without going on a trip.
And it used to be, I would think, 3 or 4 weeks was a long time. So
yeah, to go a couple months, and we were off our game a little bit. It was, the weather didn't help.
it was raining.
It rained the day before we left to go to Aiken. It rained some on the way to Aiken, and when we got there, everything was wet.
Everything.
Big puddles everywhere. Talk a little bit about the park. I guess it's probably the first thing we'll start with.
It's a small park. It's a nice small park.
It's a small park. It was one of the 16 in South Carolina built by the Civilian Conservation Corps.
Uniquely one of the only African American Corps groups that came through.
Yeah, apparently, and there's some
Ranger area.
by the Ranger area that talks about that a lot of communities were hesitant to have the African American group come to them. Aiken celebrated it, said come on. So they built a lot of the structures that were there. There was a white group that had started, and then the African Americans came in and they kind of finished everything out.
And there were several pavilions around the different lakes, the artesian wells.
Yes, so the park sits on the Edisto River. I believe it is the South Fork of the Edisto River. I could be wrong. I'll put it up here if I'm wrong.
We were continually not on our game.
Yeah, we were so off. The campground itself, I think it was about 20-ish sites.
24.
Somewhere around there. Just the water and electric, no full hookups. It is a packed sand with sand area. Lots of pine trees.
Which isn't bad.
No.
It's just you gotta
know.
be prepared for it. And because of all the rain, I wasn't prepared enough. Like the kids didn't have their
rain boots.
Rain boots, which we normally keep in the camper. They didn't have a second pair of shoes, so when one lost their balance on the bike, foot went in a giant puddle. Oops. Now you got to wet shoe for the rain or the trip.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of just how we were just off our game. But there is interesting about this park. When you come in, there's a one-way loop that you have to go all the way around.
All the way around.
All the way through.
You are driving, camper, car, whatever, and you want to,
You have to take the entire loop around.
Take this. I mean, it's probably 3 miles.
I don't know. It's big.
It seems like, because the very first time I left to go get something, I think Friday night.
Yeah, Friday. We get there and we realized we'd forgotten food.
Dish soap.
Dish soap. We didn't have a dish soap.
So I'm like driving out with the kids, find Dollar General. Ubiquitous, should be easy to get. And I mean, we drove and Tim goes, are we not at the Dollar General yet? And I said, we aren't out of the park yet. Like, this is the longest I've ever, and there's no shortcut, like, to leave or to come back or whatever. You gotta do the road.
You gotta cover the whole loop.
And it's, and there's no way around it. I mean, it is a 1-lane road.
So drive that whole loop through. Now there is a trail, a hiking trail that kind of goes throughout the
jungle.
Yep.
The jungle trail.
They call it the jungle trail. It's not very well maintained. or at least
No.
it wasn't for
It
our
could have
trip.
been a super cool trail, but it passed through the artesian wells. It passed by the kayaking put in. It basically went the whole park, and there was even a part that went around by some of the CCC structures. It was very, very wet. It could have been.
But there were several trees down. First
true, there was some trees down.
thing that we noticed was there were a lot of big trees down, and not just kind of that you have to step over. There were some you had to kind of climb over.
Especially with our little people. I mean, you
yeah.
had to like.
But
There was like boardwalks, and so some of it through the sandy area.
Right.
Was just
not that-
there was like it was really two terrains, because the sandy area there was some trees down and there was some of that, and then all of a sudden when you crossed over that Edisto put in area,
it got muddy.
the terrain changed, and it was the trees were different. It wasn't just the pine trees; it was some other kind of trees, and it started to get muddier and muddier.
And they had put some boardwalks in to try and help, but they were too short. If they needed to be extended a little way, so the first little bit of mud we got to, I said, okay,
But you could see the second boardwalk from there, so it was like, okay, we can navigate.
We can navigate and get through this little bit of mud. And then we got down the boardwalk some. The boardwalk was actually in the water, so our shoes started to get wet from that. And then we reached a point where there was nothing but mud, and there was no way we could walk through.
And you couldn't even see the next set of boardwalk. Like, you knew it was there, but there was so much mud and so much water that it was like, it's not like, okay, I can take like 3 quick steps and get on the boardwalk again. It was like
we're
far.
So then we had to turn around, and we had to walk back through the mud that we already navigated through once, and then we just walked the road back. And it's unfortunate.
And it was far, because we were almost toward the end of the trail, like where we had started. We were like 3/4 of the way through, and we would have looped back, but because we couldn't go that way, you had to come to the road, and it was another mile and a half.
Yeah, it was a challenge, but that's part of what we said. We were off our game. We didn't have the right shoes. We weren't well prepared.
Like ask. The ranger station is one of those that's only open like 11 to 12 and 4 to 5, and so we didn't check trail conditions, because lots of times we pop in or like trails are good, like all's well. So the trees down, that just is like a little annoying, and there's some maintenance issues there, but the wet
was bad.
Because then the next day he was like, oh yeah, I mean, if we get any rain, like we had gotten
a lot of rain.
It was like, any rain makes the trail impassable. A lot of rain, it's just treacherous.
So we got back to the campsite, and Saturday was actually a pretty day. We were able to go enjoy Aiken. That's what we decided to do on Saturday. We went downtown Aiken. Aiken is a beautiful small town. They've got a great downtown.
Their downtown is excellent, and one of the reasons it's excellent and continues to be excellent is when it was originally constructed, and you can tell it's the original construction. It wasn't like a refab or we're trying to make it out. They made wide avenues with
plenty of parking.
Angled parking. For the most part, angled parking. Some parallel parking. Easy parking in and out. There were people everywhere. There was antique shops that were super cool that I would love to go back to without little people. There were men's shops. There were restaurants.
So we went to a place called Plum Pudding. Plum Pudding is a kitchen store. All kinds of neat stuff. We bought some. I've never seen so many cookie cutters.
Yes, it was like a wall of cookie cutters, and the kids just went nuts. Of course, we haven't made any cookies yet with the butterfly and the lobster and
spices and
coffees
and flavors and
as well as
pots and pans
china
and dishes
and wine.
Great little store. We also went by Aiken Dry Goods, kind of a clothing store, kind of country horse type of material.
What was the cool bottle and cork?
Yep, bottling.
Super cool little old house that then they had the yard. They had little fires go in. Yep. They had a little appetizer thing happening where you could taste some different things.
And you could buy beer and wine to go, or you could actually open it up and sit out in the front yard and enjoy a cold beverage.
And there were some real interesting beers, and they even had like mixed 6-packs, like you could go in and get one of all the kind of cool things, and that was kind of fun. Like a little opportunity, and just a young couple that was running that, and their kids were playing with their kid outside. And
then there was the Aiken Antique Mall, really kind of neat setup. That's I think one you wanted to go back to without the kids. You can tell there's different booths where
all these
different
unique. I mean, every one was unique, and anything from jewelry to furniture to knickknacks to NASCAR to lots of horse stuff. Obviously, with Aiken, it's kind of horse country. Lord have mercy, I was nervous with my children on there.
There's a lot
So
of stuff.
nervous.
A lot of stuff that
It
probably
was
could have
just
gotten broken.
lots of little tiny breakable things that
Yeah.
I was like, ew.
And then just south of that, there's what they call the alley. It's kind of an alleyway that has a bunch of restaurants.
Yeah, walking alley,
Yeah.
like almost like a pavilion-y type.
Yeah, there's a lot of
restaurants.
lot of restaurants. Really fun, like entertainment district.
There's an axe throwing
And
place
like a
there.
mellow mushroom was
There's
there.
a whiskey. That's where the whiskey burger
Yeah.
place.
Whiskey on the alley or out whiskey alley or something like that.
I don't know. The burger on the sign looked really good. Like we had eaten at a really good lunch, and I still was like, man, that burger.
Yeah, it looked like a really neat place. They actually have Mardi Gras
They do
party
have,
there in the alley one weekend. So if you're there that particular weekend, I bet that's a lot of fun. We may try and go
I
back
think
next
it's
year.
actually like it's usually the weekend before Mardi Gras, so that will give you an idea. The weekend before Fat Tuesday.
So we had lunch at Max. Neat little story. It's kind of more up on the north end of the downtown district.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, gentleman grew up in New Jersey and had a vision of creating kind of a New Jersey deli here in the South, and fantastic sandwiches, very
Yeah.
good.
The
Lots
kids
and lots
even
of
just
meat.
like wiped out their sandwiches. Like
Yeah, it was-
Clara had a grilled cheese, and it could have come with bacon jam, and she was like, "That sounds weird." I was like, "Oh my gosh, like you want the bacon jam?" Like I'm not 100% sure how we can talk you into that, but
She didn't.
there was no talking her into it. But man, that sounded amazing. It had like 3 different kinds of cheeses on it.
Yeah, it was a neat place. Highly recommend it. So there's a lot of great places.
Fast
to eat
service.
downtown.
It was yeah. You could have had breakfast, lunch, dinner,
Yeah. So.
and dessert and ice cream. and,
Downtown Aiken, great place. There's also mentioned the horses at Aiken. Aiken is known for its horses. There's actually a horse district that was developed long back at the founding of Aiken, where they still have not paved the roads because they ride horses up and down the roads.
Literally, I mean, you're in the middle of downtown. You take a couple turns and
You're on a sand road.
you're just saying it's the most bizarre things. Like this is, and it's all, and there's people jumping and training horses and doing things with horses. And it was cold and yucky. I mean, it was sunny that day. It was still cold.
It was still cold. Yeah.
But it had been rainy and gross, and there's still people everywhere, horses riding. They also have art. They have the horse sculpture. So they have like almost full size, I would say,
Yeah.
horse sculptures that have been painted in all these different ways. You know, like Hendersonville's got bears.
Right.
Our community's got butterflies right now. I mean, you know, you've seen them. And they have horses, and they're so pretty, and they're all over.
They're kind of spread about.
Spread
downtown.
about. They're not necessarily all downtown. There's some, as you drove around, you'd see one just like up in a yard of a club or something.
I will say that the marketing for Aiken is really good. There are places actually along the sidewalks where there are maps that you open up a little thing, you pull a map out.
There's
Maps are great because they show you where things are, where the horses are.
Yeah, and there's like a nice brochure that had the downtown map and the horse map and the, but the other thing too is even, you know, downtown's like you're on the main, you know, 2 drags or whatever, but then on like little corners there'd be a sign that'd be like ice cream and food, and some of the little businesses that maybe were just off the block, they had kind of a what's next kind of thing. They've just done a really good job navigating people around the downtown area and drawing people to that area.
Yeah, so
And it's real pretty, like pretty old buildings. And
Aiken's a neat town. We really enjoyed that. Then we got back to the park, and Saturday night it
is that
rained.
the night it just rained?
It
It
rained.
was loud rain.
It did. It was so loud and rained.
Rained. But it was because there were so many trees. You know, lots of times when you're in the camper and you're warm and you're snuggled in, and it rains, it's the most soothing rain because it's this like solid like drumming. This was like steel drumming. I mean, it was like da-da, 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 blah, 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 blah. It was the weirdest rain.
It was very loud, and we came out that morning. I don't think I filmed it because I was frustrated. Apparently, all of the campsite's water drained through our site, so our rug was covered in wet sand.
You couldn't even see the pattern anymore.
It was the door to the back of the camper. If you stepped out, you stepped in standing water.
Well, and you even filmed your walk around like with an umbrella.
Yes. So actually, I'll do that now. I'll kind of show you the site after that had happened.
But we will say, if you're ever one of those people who's complaining that there is never a weekend that you can take your camper somewhere,
there was plenty of sites available.
there were this you could have done. There was the host, one other big fifth wheel, us, and another,
and a little hybrid.
and a hybrid, and
That was it.
That was it. Like,
So.
as far as the eye could see, and we were all kind of clumped together.
And I think you'll actually be able to see them here. I'll do the quick walk around. You'll see the other sites that are empty next to us. All right, we'll do a quick walk around of site 11. It has rained here all night last night and pretty much all morning this morning. You see sand. So a lot of sand came down through our site last night. We'll show you that in just a second. We'll walk around back here to the back. They have recently added 50 amp service, brand new water. Worked very well. It's January. I have a heated hose. Had no issue the other night when it was 29 degrees. Come around here. Plenty of room. It's plenty wide. But as I mentioned, we're going to have a mess to clean up as the sand just washed down over our rug last night in the rain. Plenty of room behind us. It's actually a little creek back there in that bamboo. Nice open space. Lantern hook. You gotta come over here and see where the neighbors were the other day. And it's Monday. A lot of folks have left. It's pretty empty. But all in all, the site's nice. It's a nice big site. Just kind of wish we weren't where the sand just washed down. So we were off our game. It was a challenging weather weekend. But
we were coming off being sick too, so we weren't
we
feeling
we
100%.
we did have we were coming off of having
breakthrough
COVID.
and
So it was a challenging weekend.
But we're glad we went just because we needed the break. Our kids had been out of school for 2 weeks, and had not been sick, so they were bugging. And they needed a change of scenery. They were able, because there was like nobody in the park and no traffic, they were able to just like
go
roam, stay within the campground. You can't really bother anybody. I think we needed that
one more thing
downtime.
I want to throw in. I just remembered another oddity to this park is the dump station.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, the big loop.
Everything's one way.
Because everything is one way. The dump station is on the other side of the road from the campground. So as you exit the campground, which is in itself another loop, you have to go across the road and hang a left, and there's the dump station.
It's almost like if the campsite's a horseshoe, the dump station's like at the bottom of that horseshoe, but then you got to
then you got to turn a really sharp left to get back out on the main road. It's a little odd. The host did tell us that they have talked to engineers, and they are exploring the idea of putting a few more sites in and possibly adding full hookups.
Rearranging some of that.
Yeah,
so maybe in some of that they'll...
Hopefully they can fix some of that little oddity. But
it was just, how are we... It was all just really narrow. And it was like really tight into here and then really tight back out.
And because it had rained so much the night before we left...
He couldn't even get out.
I couldn't get out of the car. Luckily the host came over and he put a board down.
He found like a pallet.
Yeah, he did. He found a pallet and put it out so I could get out and walk. We were off our game, but we had a good time.
We had a good time, and what I would say too is even when you feel off your game, or even because even up until like Tuesday or Wednesday, we talked about just not going, and it was like, you know what, we haven't been in forever. You know, we have warm clothes.
Let's just go. Let's just go.
I took the kids' library. We stacked up on books. I said, if all else fails, we'll just have some downtime. But we always just encourage you, just go. Go rent a place. Go find somewhere.
Even if you're off your game, even if things don't work the way you hoped, it's okay. You still can get out and go explore, have a good time, make the best of it.
Well, and we saw things we hadn't seen, and we
absolutely, explored a part of the state that the kids haven't been to yet. So,
and we,
and it's beautiful.
Explored that downtown that we're like, oh, we could go back, and
it's beautiful.
And it's really
scenery.
less than a couple hours from us. We could go for the day.
Yeah. So, well, we're getting out. Even when you're off your game, get out and go.
And I think the whole point of our channel is just to encourage people to explore South Carolina, and so,
let's go.
Just make the effort.
Yep. Thanks for watching.